The market was alive in the way only human places can be alive. Messy, loud, impatient, and overflowing with small struggles that no one notices individually. Voices stacked over each other in bargaining wars. Metal carts scraped against stone floors, and the smell of spice and sweat mixed into something that felt permanent, like the place itself refused to change no matter how many years passed. He moved through it like he always did, head slightly down, avoiding eye contact, focused on getting what he needed and leaving before the heat made everything worse. Nothing about today was supposed to matter. It was just another cycle of work, errands, and survival in a world that never paused for anyone. Then, something shifted. At first it wasn't obvious. The noise didn't stop, but it felt thinner, like someone had started pulling sound out of the air in invisible threads. A vendor's shout ended too cleanly. A child's laugh cut off mid-breath. Even the natural chaos of movement seemed to hesitate for half a second longer than it should have. He slowed down without knowing why. People around him didn't react. That was the strange part. No one else seemed to notice the pressure change in the atmosphere. But his body did. A strange heaviness settled behind his ears, like the world was preparing to hold its breath. And then, she appeared. She didn't walk like anyone he had ever seen. No hesitation, no scanning of surroundings, no confusion about where she was. She moved through the crowd like it wasn't there, like every person and object simply existed on a different layer of reality that didn't touch her. Too still, too precise, too wrong. Her eyes locked onto him instantly. That single moment felt like recognition, even though he had never seen her before in his life. Not curiosity, not searching. Something sharper, something urgent. Before he could even process it, she crossed the distance between them. Her hand closed around his wrist. It wasn't strong in a physical sense, it didn't hurt. But the instant contact happened, the world broke. Sound vanished completely. Not reduced, not muffled. Gone. The market didn't quiet down, it stopped existing as a sound-producing system at all. His ears registered nothing, not even his own breathing. It was as if reality had removed the concept of vibration, but worse than that, movement froze. A falling fruit hung in mid-air like time had forgotten it existed. A man mid-step remained suspended, with one foot still lifted. Fabric stopped mid-sway. Dust particles held in place like the world had been turned into a paused recording. Only he and her remained active. His first instinct was panic. He tried to pull his arm back, tried to shout, tried to force his body into a reaction that made sense. Nothing responded properly. Even his thoughts felt slightly delayed, like they were passing through thick water. Her grip tightened slightly, not aggressive, desperate. She looked at him, and for the first time he saw it clearly, not confidence, not control, but fear. Pure, unfiltered fear that didn't belong in a being that could freeze an entire environment just by touching someone. Her lips moved. No sound came out, but something still reached him. Not through ears, through perception. Don't let go. The words didn't feel spoken. They felt injected directly into his awareness. He looked around, trying to understand what had happened. Everything was still. Completely still. A world paused at the exact moment of interruption. No wind, no distant traffic, no life. Just absolute suspended existence stretching in every direction. And yet, it didn't feel dead. It felt contained. Like something was holding reality in place from the outside. He turned back to her. She was trembling now. And that was when he understood something fundamental had broken. Not just physics, but something layered underneath it. Something built into her. This wasn't a weapon she had activated. It was a survival response. She wasn't controlling it. She was trapped inside it with him. They moved forward through a world that no longer acknowledged motion. Every step felt unreal, like walking through a photograph that had been torn open just wide enough for them to pass through. The air itself had weight, not physical pressure, but something deeper. an absence of sound so complete it felt like it was pressing against his thoughts. He kept his hand locked with hers without fully deciding to. It had already become necessary in a way he didn't understand yet. Whenever her grip loosened even slightly, something in the frozen environment flickered, as if reality itself reacted to instability in her fear. She stayed close to him, almost glued by instinct rather than choice. Up close, the details of her became harder to ignore. She didn't look human pretending to be human. She looked like something that had studied human form and reconstructed it with near-perfect accuracy, but missed subtle imperfections that made life feel real. Her stillness wasn't calm, it was control held together by panic. Her breathing was shallow, controlled, forced. He tried speaking once, more out of reflex than expectation. No sound existed to carry it. Instead, the words dissolved immediately, leaving only the sensation of having tried. She noticed anyway. Her head turned slightly toward him, and the response came without sound again, forming directly inside his awareness. They will find me if I stop it. He didn't understand at first. Then, fragments started aligning. The silence wasn't accidental. It wasn't just a side effect of her fear. It was defensive. A containment field generated by an internal system reacting to perceived threat. The absence of sound wasn't emptiness. It was concealment. She was hiding from something that could track vibration, movement, or communication. He looked around again at the frozen market, realization growing heavier with each second. Everything suspended wasn't dead or paused in a simple way. It was locked out of synchronization, removed from normal time flow. A protective distortion wrapped around her presence like a shield that had expanded too far. But it was unstable. He could feel it now. Subtle changes, micro-movements returning in places where they shouldn't. A bead of liquid slowly twitching. A suspended object rotating a fraction of a degree. Time wasn't fully stopped, it was being strained, and something was pushing back. She tightened her grip on his hand again, and he felt it immediately, her control weakening. Not physically, but internally. Like something inside her was running out of capacity to maintain the field. Her eyes flickered with something deeper than fear now. Warning. Don't separate. The thought formed again, sharper this time. If contact breaks, reset begins. He didn't understand the word at first. Reset didn't belong in anything real. Systems reset. Machines reset. Not reality. But then he felt it, a subtle looping sensation at the edge of awareness. A sense that time wasn't just stopped, but held in a fragile configuration that could be undone completely if the anchor point was lost. Him. Or her. Or the connection between them. She wasn't just relying on him physically. She was tethering her existence through him. He realized something worse then. They weren't alone in the silence. Even in a frozen world, something else was present, not visible in motion, but detectable in pressure. A presence that didn't belong to the market, or to Earth, or to anything human scale. It wasn't moving through space. It was arriving through disruption, and it was getting closer. The instability was no longer subtle. It started as small fractures in the silence. Tiny breaks where reality failed to stay perfectly locked. A distant flicker of motion that shouldn't exist. Then, another. Then more frequent distortions, like the frozen world was beginning to remember how to move again in scattered fragments. He could feel it through her hand before he could see it properly. Her grip tightened, not with intention, but reflex. Her body reacting to something internal, collapsing faster than she could control. The calm illusion she had been holding together was gone now. What remained was strain. Her breathing became uneven. The silence wasn't pure anymore. It was contaminated by echoes that didn't belong. Not sound returning fully, but broken remnants of it. Half-formed vibrations that never completed their cycle. It made the environment feel unstable, like reality was trying to reboot but failing halfway through. He noticed people beginning to change again, not fully waking, not fully moving, just inconsistent shifts. A finger twitching and freezing again. a head turning slightly before snapping back into stillness. The world was no longer paused, it was corrupted between states. She looked at him with something heavier than fear now, urgency mixed with damage. They are close, the thought entered him again, but this time it was fractured, unstable. They track collapse signatures. He finally understood what she meant. The silence wasn't just protection. It was camouflage, a null field designed to erase detectable presence. But it wasn't perfect. It left behind traces, imprints in reality that something trained could follow. And whatever was coming was trained. A pressure built in the air around them, not audible, but undeniable. Like space itself was being observed from multiple angles at once. The sensation wasn't physical, but it made his instincts scream. Her condition worsened visibly. Lines of faint luminescence beneath her skin flickered in irregular patterns, like failing circuitry. She was not just afraid, she was deteriorating under the effort of maintaining the field. Every second cost her stability, and worse, he began to notice something inside himself. Memory instability. Faces from earlier in the market felt less defined. Conversations he should clearly remember had soft edges, like they were being gently erased. Even the moment she grabbed his hand felt slightly distant, as if it had happened longer ago than it actually had. She noticed his confusion and reacted instantly. Her grip tightened again, and the fading slowed. She was anchoring him as much as he was anchoring her. Not emotionally. Biologically. Mechanically. That realization hit harder than anything else. He wasn't helping her survive out of kindness or chance. He was functioning as a stabilizing point for a system that couldn't exist alone in normal reality. A human anchor holding an alien collapse field together. The distortion around them intensified again. The frozen world began to stutter more aggressively. Entire sections of reality flickered between stillness and motion, like a broken signal trying to reconnect. And then, he felt it. Something had entered the edge of the field. Not fully visible, not fully present, but unmistakably aware of them. The hunters weren't searching anymore. They had arrived at the source. The collapse came in layers. First, the silence fractured completely. What had been a controlled absence of sound turned into unstable bursts, half-formed echoes, distorted vibrations, and abrupt voids where sound tried and failed to exist. It felt like reality was losing confidence in its own structure. Then movement returned in unstable patches. The frozen world didn't restart cleanly. It restarted wrong. A hand that should have been suspended dropped too fast and hit nothing. A person mid-step resumed motion in the wrong direction. Objects that had been locked in air fell in delayed clusters, creating chaotic ripples through space that had no coordination. He could barely keep his footing as reality around them began to desynchronize. Her grip on him became the only stable point left. She was shaking now, not just emotionally, but structurally. The faint glow under her skin was fading in irregular pulses, like a system running out of energy reserves. Every second of continued collapse was draining her capacity to maintain coherence. They are entering. The thought reached him again, but weaker this time. Do not release. He looked around and finally saw them clearly, not fully physical in the way he understood existence, but present enough to bend perception. Their forms were inconsistent, edges that didn't stay defined, movement that didn't follow continuous flow. They weren't walking through space. They were correcting it as they advanced, like errors being removed from a system. Their attention was locked on her, or what she represented. The field between everything was now unstable enough that memory erosion was accelerating. He could feel it happening in real time. Entire seconds were disappearing from his internal timeline. The sense of continuity between thoughts was breaking apart. If this continued, he wouldn't just forget details, he would lose sequence entirely. She looked at him directly. For the first time, there was something beyond fear in her expression. Decision. She understood the outcome faster than he did. The field couldn't hold much longer. Her body couldn't sustain it. And the hunters were already inside the collapse boundary. Keeping him tethered would only prolong his exposure. Her fingers loosened slightly. That small movement changed everything. The environment reacted immediately. Reality instability spiked. The desynchronization intensified, as if the system had detected the possibility of separation and began executing correction protocols. He understood in that instant what she was about to do. If she released him, the field would terminate, the entire system would reset. And everything tied to her existence would be erased from his memory as collateral stabilization. She would survive in another cycle, somewhere outside his awareness, and he would continue his life as if she had never existed. Her hand trembled harder, not from weakness alone now, but from conflict. Survival mechanism versus choice. Instinct versus connection. The hunters closed in closer, their presence bending the remaining structure of reality around them. The air itself felt like it was being rewritten in real time. She looked at him one last time. Not asking, confirming, and in that moment he made the decision before she could complete hers. He tightened his grip instead of letting go. The collapse stopped responding like an ending, and started responding like resistance.